This
your cap on,
conference will now be recorded.
and then once that's on there, then thanks for interrupting.
Sorry.
um, yeah, once you put that cap on there, I mean it'll be
Good to go. That's
good to
probably what
go.
I'll do, because I've got the tap and die set for that. So I'll
Yep.
just I'll just cut it down to where I know it's going to work fine. And
I mean, you can,
go from
if you
there.
got the tap and die and you want to do it that way, honestly, it's cheaper if you just go on Amazon and get you a piece of 2040 extrusion.
Okay.
But and a lead screw. I mean, because for me to have the kit that has the pre-drilled holes and everything, obviously the price is going to be more.
Sure.
And if you're willing to do it yourself, you can trim it to the exact size you want it, tap the holes, and get you a lead screw for the sled
Right.
or the slider, and be done with it for probably, I don't know, about half of what I charge for it.
Sure.
Because basically with my stuff you're paying for the pre-cut, pre-drilled,
Yeah. So it's all
all that
done,
stuff.
ready to
So.
go. Yep. Nope. Understandable.
But it'd be cheaper for you to do that than to buy it from me. I mean, I'm glad to sell it to you, but I mean, I don't want to take your money if I don't, if it's not necessary, you can do it
Sure. I
yourself.
appreciate that. Thank you.
Mhm.
Well, I give that some thought. Thanks, Jason.
Yep.
Cool. So, Robert, you probably saw the change. Jason, you probably did too, but I'm just going to pop it up just to do it. That's not the one I wanted. You know, they changed the air pressure recommendation
Oh yeah.
on the external interface kits
Down to 40.
down to 40. Yeah. And I figured since I was recording and maybe some people will watch this, we'll show it. And I think I added it in the documentation.
Why'd you lower
Ooh, where
it to
did I?
40?
Oh, here's the guidelines. Okay.
Why was it lowered to 40?
Because we're blowing out solenoids. We're blowing out those air solenoids, running, 80, 90, even 60 PSI. And they determined that anything over 40 is probably not, going to have a real benefit once you get over that pressure. Some people may see it.
Well, I mean, if you're cutting, that's where you're going to benefit from. I mean, I honestly run mine at 60 to 80, and I've never had a problem with it yet.
Yeah,
When
well, I mean, there's a
cut-
point of diminishing returns on that pressure too. There's a point when no more can go through the kerf, so you're just wasting it anyway. You know what I'm saying? So,
Well, you're
but
not
anyway,
you're not losing pressure, you're losing volume at that point.
well,
But the
it
pressure's what.
affects both. But I mean, yeah, they are intertwined. But I just wanted to put that. I swear I put it in there.
Yeah, because
Air compressor guidelines.
if you restrict flow, you increase pressure and reduce volume. And then if you open it up, you do the opposite.
There
You
it
lower
is.
pressure, increase volume.
Yeah, but either way, that's what they're rating their system pressures at now is 40.
And that's just for this kit, right? It's not, or is that the machine limit?
that's the machine limit, no matter what the air source is.
Okay, so that's not
this-
talking about this you got pulled up. It's talking about
No.
the actual electrical
It's talking about the
solenoids in
lasers.
the machine.
Yeah,
Okay.
right.
But you can always upgrade those solenoids too. The solenoids
You
are
can,
fairly
or if you
cheap.
want to blow them out and get some more, that's cool. And some people aren't blowing them out, but
Yeah.
there's enough of an incident rate, where we saw an uptick in it that we thought we needed to dial it in a little bit, and if you need to run at 60 for something and it really makes a benefit, then run at 60 for a little while, and then just kick it back down. That prolonged high pressure on those seats in those air solenoids is very detrimental, to the sealing and even on the plunger. They're getting stuck open and stuck closed and all kinds of stuff because of those kinds of pressures being exerted on the plunger. So
interesting.
Yeah, the other thing that I've seen on doing lab tests here is really anything over 40, you start running into an issue, kind of like a Venturi effect, where it actually will start drawing smoke air or the smoky air back in on top of your lens and start sealing your lens. So, and if you hear the hiss in the background, I'm sorry, my laser's running right now, so
yeah,
I'll be
if you're engraving, you shouldn't be over 5 or 10 psi to be realistic,
or even 2. But yeah,
I mean, I run just barely enough. I'll stick my finger on the tip of the nozzle. I'll turn it up to where I just feel it trying to push my finger away, and then that's it.
Yeah.
I don't have a pressure gauge
Maintain
on
positive
mine,
pressure in there.
yeah.
Yeah.
So,
But if you're cutting, ideally the smoke and everything will blow out the bottom and then get sucked out through the fan.
yeah, the problem is
Well,
when you're cutting thicker stuff and you have to do multiple passes. So like if I'm cutting 2-inch material or something with mine, I'm running a couple passes on it. And if I've got my and all that smoke's up on top for the first couple passes, it'll just suck the smoke right back in where the lens housing is with the Venturi effect, and
Well, yeah.
not be nearly as good.
I mean,
Yeah.
that's a very extreme process, cutting up to 2 inches of material. I mean,
Oh, we do
if
1-inch thick all the time.
well, yeah, I do 1 inch thick all the time too, and I can get through it in one pass. But I mean, you're cutting 2 inches, doing 2 or 3 passes on it. I mean, yeah, you're gonna get a lot of crap coming up out of the cut for sure.
Yeah, if you're running over, I think I'd have to go look at my notes again. I think we started seeing it. I think it was around 50 or 55 psi is where we started seeing the Venturi effect come into play at,
Did
and
you
that's
see?
also right about 50 is also about where we found the diminishing point where there's no additional benefit of going over, or
Well, the
not
thing
really
is,
noticeable.
but the thing is you got to look at too is you're running a different situation than what would normally be done if you're trying to cut through a thinner piece of material, because you're actually creating a vortex in that cut because the air is going down and coming back up. It's not going down and going through the bottom like it's supposed to. Because ideally, the more pressure you have, the better it is to push that material down through, and it also increases your cut velocity and the temperature of the cut because of the airflow. But in your case, if you're cutting through that thick material, you're basically burning material, and it's cycling back up to the top and then getting sucked back into the airflow of the
Yeah.
nozzle, and then all that debris is smacking and hitting your nozzle and building up on the side of your nozzle.
Yeah, but what we're doing is when we run our lab tests, we're primarily doing 3 millimeter and 6 millimeter birch because those are kind of the most common sizes that everyone's doing. And of course, we do lab testing that's way beyond that as well. But our normal lab test is on 3 millimeter and 6 millimeter birch.
Yeah, that's 1/4 inch, 1/8 inch material, so it's a fairly common.
Yep.
So, all right. So looks like we got Danny and Ron, and John is joining us again. So if any of you guys have anything you want to jump right in, feel free to interrupt, or we'll just sit here and talk about stuff all day long.
Yeah, I actually do have one for you, Brian.
Okay.
So I have,
oh man, I don't know if I'm gonna be able to answer it.
I have 3 lasers that I have to move. Basically, my plan of attack is draining the water out, zip tying the head to the gantry, packing foam around the tube. Is there anything else you can think of that I'm missing before I go to move these things? Because they're going to have to go up on end 90 degrees, and they'll be transported up on end as well.
Remove the honeycomb bed and all the blade system and all of that. Also remove any door that doesn't have a ground strap or a wire and a fan attached to it. It'll give you holding points, and it'll also lessen the weight.
Okay.
Zip tie your gantries to one spot inside the machine. That way they don't flop around inside. I would take your tube out.
Nah, don't take the tube out. They come all the way from China with the tube in them. They're good.
Well, yeah, but they're not going through the kind of stuff of trying to squeeze one through a doorway either. Twisting. Yeah,
that's our prescription. Stuff. You don't take the tube out to disassemble them and get them through a door.
Okay, well that's what I would do. Anytime I do a major move with mine, I take a tube out, wrap it up in a blanket, and be done with it.
If you do take the tube out, do you have to realign it when it goes back in, or do those cradles stay pretty well?
People replace their tubes all the time, and they never realign them. If it were me, I would do a full alignment.
I would check it. I would check it at the very least.
Yeah.
Put it in and check it. What I do is I take tape where the straps come over the tube. I'll take tape and I'll put tape on both sides of the strap, so when I put it back in, it goes back in essentially in the exact same spot it came out of. That way you don't have to worry about it shifting side to side and messing up the alignment or anything that way. Okay. But in theory, as long as you don't touch the mounts themselves, it should go right back into spot. But an alignment check at the
Yeah.
very least would be ideal.
And I'm sure there's some stress on that frame, you know, when they're loading it and packaging it and putting it on the crate and all that. So that's why they use those rubber straps or those composite straps across the top, because they do have a little flex and a little give, you know, in case there is it's not so rigid that it'll actually crack the tube. There's a little bit of give there without losing your accuracy, hopefully.
Do I need to worry about getting 100% of the water out of that tube before I move it? Because it's I'm in Alaska, so it's colder than crap up here.
If there's a little in the bottom, I don't think it'll matter.
But what I do, just me, is I'll take off. I can't remember which end's the low point. I think it's the right side, looking at the back of the machine. Whichever the side's the low side, I'll take the opposite, which is the high side, once you take the hose off, and I'll blow air through it and purge all the water out. And then any residual that's left in there, if, in your case, if it does freeze, it's not going to cause any damage because it's not enough to expand and break something. But I would definitely, just like I said, for me, I blow it out, make sure there's nothing in there, just mainly for me because I'm in Florida, so I ain't got to worry about that. But it's just to keep a mess, you know, from making a mess, basically. But
yeah, that's a good idea. Kind of like they run the air compressors on the irrigation systems in the winter to kind of blow. They don't get everything, but they can get most of it. Yeah.
Yep.
Good idea.
Yeah, I was planning on. I've got a little little water pump thing that I was gonna put in there. It's a lifter pump. It's a diaphragm pump. So I was just gonna put the little tube inside there and suck out as much as I can with that little guy.
No.
But yeah, it'll be entertaining moving 3 lasers plus all the rest of my shop. Great fun.
No, what you could do for like your water coolers or your chillers is just disconnect the hoses and turn it on, and just let it pump itself dry. And as soon as it starts to spit and sputter, turn it off so you don't run the pump while it's dry. But just to get the water out that way, that's the quickest way to get the water out of the chiller. And then if you really want to, you can take the cap off and turn it upside down and dump it out. But I wouldn't really recommend that because of the freon and stuff in the pump. You don't want to.
Yeah, well, the chillers will be riding inside of a truck, so they'll be heated. I'm not too awfully worried about those ones freezing.
Yeah.
Yeah, but those sensors and pumps in there are plastic, so if they do freeze, they are gonna crack for sure.
Oh.
Gotcha. Yeah. Well, luckily my new shop's only about a mile down the road, so.
Cool.
But yeah, growing a little bit, going up to about 8,500 square feet on the new place.
Nice.
Wow. You got me beat. I need to get myself a warehouse. Holy crap.
All right. So, Ron or Danny, John, 2 Johns. Anybody got anything?
Hi, this is John Z.
Hey, how are you?
Good. How are you doing? I'm trying to get
Doing
my
well.
webcam going, but anyway, I am contemplating buying a Thunder laser, and so I thought I'd join this call and get some feedback from everybody as well as questions.
Sure. Well, do you have any specific questions or things?
I'm in the Chicago area, so Travis, I've seen some of your comments online in the Facebook group, being in Alaska. And one of my questions is, if I end up keeping the laser in our garage, protecting it from freezing, and what has to happen to do that.
So there's a lot of stuff. So mine are in a temperature controlled environment. There's some people that will
background, I haven't used. I did the weekend laser class at Mark Adams.
Yeah, so I've got one test unit that is going to be getting set up a little bit different once we move. The new test unit is going to be running glycol in it instead of water, which still transmits. Actually, it transfers heat even better than water, but with it being glycol, you don't, until it gets like 100 below zero, you don't have to worry about it freezing. So we'll have a test unit up on that here pretty soon, and we'll be able to let people know, what percentage mix of glycol and all that kind of stuff. Initially, I think we're going to be playing with a 30% glycol mix. So it's 70% distilled water, 30% glycol. I see a lot of people using RV antifreeze and all this. RV antifreeze is basically kind of like a glorified sugar water. It's going to really accelerate bacteria growth in that water, and that's exactly what you don't want. And I've seen people use car antifreeze. I don't have any experience with using car antifreeze, so I can't really say much, but I can't think that it would be fun to use. So that's kind of why I'm playing with Glycol. It's easy to get a hold of, relatively inexpensive, and it's designed for that purpose. I mean, up here on our heated sidewalks and everything, that's what we run is Glycol. So the heat transfer is amazing on it.
You do got to be careful though, because of the tin and stuff in those chillers. Glycol is somewhat of an acid-based material. So you want to watch out for that stuff and make sure it's not going to damage any of the copper or the aluminum inside of that system.
Yeah, the copper I know will be just fine, because that's what we use on heat transfer plates now is copper. The aluminum is what I'm a little concerned on, which is why it's going in our testing lab for a while. And we'll run that chiller just nonstop for probably about a month, and then see if there's any damage on the inside or any of that kind of stuff.
You could probably save yourself a little money and time and just do a dosing tank. Have a gallon of your mixture that you want to use, like a 20, a 30, a 40, and then drop, like if you have an old car radiator, just cut some fins off of it, drop it in there, and see how that reacts with it.
Yeah, it's it's not a bad idea. The only problem is I don't know the actual alloy that they're using on the inside of these chillers, because there's so many different types of alloys. It might be wildly different and not be a good comparison. So when I do stuff in my testing lab, I want to make sure it's rock solid before I put it out there.
Yeah.
Travis, have you seen the performance coolants for the PC cooling? They have a lot of those that they're touting for laser CO2 tubes now. They're showing that the conductivity is way below permissible levels.
I was going to say, the next thing you're looking at static buildup from them.
Yeah. But anyway, that's some neat stuff. John, I think we covered it. As far as ducting and things like that to help with it, you can also reference, let me get this back up real quick, the exhaust documentation. Venting the exhaust, and it has some suggestions, like using a blast gate, for instance, so that you can block off the air from the outside, in addition to a louvered or dampened outlet like this. I use this one, and it's weighted and not spring loaded. Some of the dampers are spring loaded and they corrode after a while and don't close anymore. So I like the weighted ones, and it also has a screen, a wire screen in the bottom to keep critters out. But in addition, yeah, and then in real cold weather, you may want to put a blast gate on there so you can shut that down at night, just to make sure that it's closed. And I'd also leave my lid open on my laser to equalize the pressure, the temperature inside the laser, if you're concerned with any cold air still coming through the exhaust.
So I noticed keeping it closed, because I used to do that here in Florida, and in the wintertime, if you keep the door closed, it condensates. Basically, the whole inside of the machine will get condensate in it. And I've actually come out to water on my floor, trying to figure out if my chiller had started leaking or something. I'm looking around, I open up the door, and like water's just dripping off of the inside of the machine. So I mean, up north or what have you, it might be a little drier. Down here, it's always humid as I'll get out. So
one other thing that works really well for keeping the cold air out is up here. I'm sure they have this down where you're at as well, but up here, the HVAC companies make these things. They're called cold air traps, and it's essentially kind of like a heat trap that goes outside of your house, and traps the cold air in the bottom and prohibits the air from coming back in.
Okay. Yeah, I guess I was thinking, if it was not in use, I wouldn't have it attached. Again, it's going to be kind of hobby. Then future, when I retire, be able to do a little part-time business with it. Is what my intention is.
Well, ultimately, if your laser is comfortable, you are. It likes about what you like as far as an operating temperature. 70
Mhm.
degrees or 20 degrees centigrade is good on the tube, but the environment of the machine, they like it 60, 70, 75 degrees, just like we do.
Sure.
I've got mine. I'm in Tennessee, and it gets cold. It may freeze a little bit, and I have a 1500 watt space heater in a 2-car garage. It does have an insulated door, and the walls are insulated. But that's it. There's no HVAC. And I just run that one little heater in the winter, and it's totally, comfortable for me. So,
Mhm. Okay. Yeah, that seems like it would be some options.
Yeah.
Okay. And then I guess the other thought in terms of just general things like that, if you use the laser in the house, like I have a upstairs office,
Mhm.
so I know it has to be vented and so forth, and but would that be, if I ended up using it there, does that cause any concerns?
we have people that make a cutout of a piece of wood that fits in their window that has a 6-inch hole in it and pokes that out when they want to run it, and then close the window when they're done. So you can look at some sort of semi-permanent solution to be able to evacuate, your exhaust if you're in that situation. See, like Jason Scott over there, you can probably, he
Barely
made his
see it.
out of plexi.
Yeah,
So
mine-
Oh, okay. Oh, yeah, yeah.
feel like
All right.
I got the 6-inch for the big laser and 4-inch for the fiber.
Ah, okay.
So another option you have for that too is if you don't want to do a bracket like that, and you want to just be able to run it wherever you want inside, depending on which size laser you are, they're anywhere from 3,000 up to about 6,000. You can get what's called a BOFA filter, and that will clear out any type of exhaust. They go through, I think it's 3 standard filters, 2 beds of charcoal, and then 2 HEPA filters before it evacuates the air back out. And it's got the fan and everything built into it.
Yeah, but the replacement of the media that is
It's
killer.
terribly expensive, yeah.
Yeah.
So I've got a buddy that didn't have a way to vent out because his landlord wouldn't cut him a hole anywhere. And so he got a BOFA filter, and they work really well.
No, they work really well, but man, to replace the media in them and upkeep and everything is ridiculously expensive. And a lot of places, like I don't know who has what for garbage or sanitary waste and stuff, but they don't like that wasted charcoal.
Oh, that filter media when you
Yeah,
discard it.
the media,
Yeah.
because all the toxins in it and stuff from whatever it is you're cutting.
Yeah,
Not
I don't
that
think
they-
I'd be going that high end, but that's interesting. Yeah, that's interesting to know. What I'm looking at is the Nova 35, and I'm kind of toying with the 80 watt versus the 100 watt, so still a pretty good size machine.
Mhm.
So another question I had was about the rotary, and I see Jason from Rotoboss is on, and I know also, I'm not sure, is there a difference between the Rotoboss laser and the Thunder Rotoboss laser? Not laser, rotary.
The rotaries themselves are the same. I mean, of course, I sell my own on my website. The juniors is what Thunder has primarily for sale. They also have the rights to the one that you actually see on my profile there, which is the Roto Boss, as well as the low roller. The only difference is really is the color. The prices are the same for those two. The junior you can only get through Thunder. I recommend getting the one through Thunder, any of them through Thunder, just because they help with the warranty and maintenance and upkeep and things like that, troubleshooting. They help out a lot with that. Of course, I do too, but aside from the color, there's no real difference.
Okay.
They're the same machines.
Okay. All right. And I'm still learning. As I joined a makerspace after taking that class, and they've got a Chinese laser there, which I was able to get up and make a couple of things. In that class I took, we did quite a variety, which was a lot of fun. I did a coffee mug using a rotary, which turned out really cool. Name tag and wood. We made some coasters out of couple of different types of woods. We did black tile, some tiles, a leather coaster, and then I did some acrylic, converting a photograph of the dog into an acrylic thing. So we got a lot done on a weekend. It was pretty cool, but it all came down to the software. The software, we're using the Corel free trial for that class, and that was definitely a learning curve.
Yeah, the light burn that comes with the Thunder stuff is really good nowadays. They come a long way, and they're constantly improving them. I personally use Corel Draw, but that's just because I've been using it for so long, and a lot of other things that I do with my business involves using that program. But I mean, you get a Thunder, it'll come with everything, plug and play. You take it out of the box, set it up, and you're ready to go. You don't have to buy anything else.
Okay, yeah. So I saw that on the website that Lightburn's there. So I just started tinkering with Inkscape a little bit, but the makerspace, they have the Thunder laser. Is it RD Works?
Yeah.
It used to be, yeah.
RD Works, yeah.
Yeah, that's what they have installed there, and I was able to open files that a couple of SVG files that I bought online, and get them to print. The problem I had, I wasn't able to save the files, and I don't know if it's just a function of that the version is out of date, or
if you want to walk through Lightburn, I can remote in with you and spend a little time with you and show you what all it has in it, or some of it. I won't be able to show you in a half an hour what all it can do by any means, but I can give you a pretty good walkthrough if you want to just get a good feel of it, and we can discuss some of that thing in a personal session if you'd like to. You can just let me know and I'll be glad to set it up for you.
Okay, yeah, thank you. I may take you up on that.
Sure.
Okay. Well, I know other people have questions. I don't want to take up the whole time here, so I'll just listen in and keep learning something.
All right. Sounds good.
Thank you.
Hey, Ron, looks like you got something on your mind.
Yeah, I got a question about the opposite side of the heating cooling question. I'm in Florida as well. I just wonder if I'm going to have the laser in a non-climate controlled garage. If the thing's hot all day and I come home and I want to use it and I turn the air on in there, do I have to wait for it to cool down, totally for the thing, or can I just start cutting?
Nah, the refresh rate in that pump is, 30 seconds and it's ready to run. And it depends on what mode you have it in. They ship those chillers in intelligent mode, which means it'll stay within 5 degrees of ambient temperature. Now, logic would dictate if it's 90 degrees in your shop, you don't want it to be 95, or 90 or 85 even. So you'll want to switch to constant mode. And that way you can set a set point. So you can set it to 70 degrees and it'll stay within 5 degrees of that set point all the time, no matter what.
Okay, that answers my question.
I would recommend, I'd recommend, because I noticed at different times throughout the year, I've noticed that when you turn the chiller on, the tube will actually condensate because of the humidity down here. So, and obviously the electronics on the electrode contact points are on the outside of the tube. So that's just something you might want to be mindful of and kind of keep an eye of, especially if you're going from one temperature extreme to another cooler temperature. But if you're starting it up and you're kind of working with it as it goes, it's not like a temperature shock to where it's gonna cause a massive amount of condensation. It probably won't even be noticeable. But I've noticed being here in Florida, I've had those problems before where the tube will get a little bit of condensation on the outside, because obviously the colder temperatures of the water and the hotter of the air and everything kind of condenses and sweats on the tube a little bit. But aside from that, I keep mine in a climate controlled area now, so I don't have to worry about that. But before, I was in the same situation you are, where I only turned on AC or heat when I needed it because otherwise it was useless. But so just and another thing too, being down here, I have a dehumidifier running or hooked up and turned on to about 40% all the time down here.
Okay.
Just to help keep air flowing in the space, and also help to keep the humidity down. Because if you're in a garage with a gap or something underneath where the moist air or something can get in, you're constantly being proactive with getting rid of the humidity that's going to eventually make it in there.
Perfect.
But that's just me. That's what I've been doing ever since I had the issue we were talking about earlier with my machine sweating. From the condensation and stuff. Ever since I've used the dehumidifier, I haven't had the issue again throughout the whole year. So
Okay.
it really helps. It's a $200 investment, and it's a good insurance policy.
Actually, the AC I have has dehumidifier built in, so if I'm not running it as AC, I can switch it over, and it works
Can
as
you?
a dehumidifier.
Okay. Yeah, that'd be even better if you already have something that you can use for that.
Yeah. One thing that I would recommend is if you're going to switch the chiller out of intelligent mode, go to Home Depot and pick up one of these guys here. They're $20. It tells you what the current temperature, current humidity is at all times. And then just use an online calculator. They're all over the place and they're free. And you can plug in your air temperature, your humidity, and it'll tell you what your dew point is. And as long as you stay above that dew point level, you'll never get condensation on your tube.
Yeah.
Okay.
I just turn it on full blast and let it go. I'm too lazy to do math.
That's cheating. I've got too much equipment here that I have to worry about. So.
Well, no, I mean, but I keep, like in my shop here, I keep the humidity at about 40%. And then in my other one, I just let the dehumidifier run constantly. So whatever, and it gets down to 20, 30% sometimes. But I just let it.
If I could get to 40%, I'd be happy. If you see there, mine is at 16 inside my office right now.
Oh,
so,
well, that's good. I mean, it sucks for you because breathing.
Oh, dude, I shock the crap out of myself every time I turn on or off a light.
That too, yep.
All right. Anybody else got anything? How you doing, Jeremy?
I'm doing good. How about yourself, Brian?
Doing good, man. Hanging in there. Hanging in there. What do you know new? Anything good?
No, I got some parts that ship. Still ain't got a laser coming yet, but that's March time. I picked up one of the air dryer kits when they cropped up some crop up on the site or Facebook group one.
Gotcha. So, all right, cool. Well, the waiting's the hardest part, man. So
I got plenty. I'm busy now.
At least you got time to get everything set up.
Yeah. So
I always wait till the last minute, try to rush, and then I don't get it set up right or do something halfway and kick myself for doing it later.
I'm gonna have all the time in the world and still not set it up right, I'm sure. So.
Oh, trust me, it's always fun. I've got a brand new Nova 35 sitting in my garage doing nothing. So hasn't been hooked up or fired yet.
You want to sell it?
All right.
You want to pay shipping?
I'm paying for shipping from China, so I imagine it's cheaper on a bigger machine as well. So
I don't know. COVID coming through customs in Canada and all that stuff.
I've got my nice big 63 sitting there running right now in the background. So.
Hey, Danny, did you have something? I saw you kick your mic on.
Yes, I'm just curious what size machines people are talking about, or if just curious what issues they're running into. And by the way, I'm going to meet with Michael sometime next week. Thank you.
Okay, great, awesome, good to hear. Anybody got anything on machine size that they gleaned from their experience?
I have a Nova 63, a Nova 35, and a Boss LS 1420. The Boss only gets used for tumblers. My 63 is the workhorse that does the majority of my projects, and then the Nova 35, once it's set up at our new location, will be strictly for training only.
Hey, got a quick question for you, Travis. What made you go with the 63 over the 51? Just out of curiosity.
I'm in the sign and promotional product industry, and so I needed the extra bed size. All of our Baltic birch that we get up here comes from Russia, so it's metric and it's 5 foot by 5 foot sheets instead of 4 by 8 sheets. So I needed something that I could get that 5 foot sheet on.
Yep, I get some of both. I was just thinking Thunder might have missed a really good opportunity if they could have had the 63 wide and got a 4 by 8 in the side, right? You know, that 48 to come in the side. That I was one thing that I was disappointed I couldn't put the 4 by 8 in the side rather than pass through the front. Or I would have bought the 63 there. But yeah, I fortunately I quit having to buy 5 by 5s. I can get 4 by 8s of proper Baltic birch from my my local lumber importer.
Yeah, we can't get those up here. We can only get the 5 by 5. So I'm pushing Thunder pretty hard still. I want them to come out with a 5 foot by 10 foot flatbed with a 520 watt laser on it. So it's a quad 130s that are all chimed together in one tube. So
easy now. We're pushing them for the fiber first. Brian, you're on mute as well.
Yeah, I saw that. So you're talking about reviving the Titan 250, basically? Wasn't it 5 by 10?
What is it? I've never even heard of the Titan 250.
I think
you need to push them for that, apparently. Yeah.
It's the old flatbed.
Yeah, but I want it with that quad tube I was showing you.
Yeah. Yeah. So let's see, where is it? Where's my buttons went away? There we go. Share the screen. I think it should pop up. That's the Titan 250. 1300 by 2500. Whatever that works out to.
That would do it. Throw one of those.
Yeah, that's only 100 watt laser though.
Yeah. Yeah, we'd have to do something to the sources, but.
Yeah, quick one on if you're talking the quad tube, Travis. How does that work? So if you had a failed tube, could you run it with just reduced capacity with 3 tubes instead of 4?
Yeah. So the way that they work, and Lightburn's already set up to support quad tubes. The way that they work is it's actually 4 130 watt tubes that are all put inside of one big tube housing. And you can control each tube individually. So if you want to do some engraving,
4 tubes, 4 independent power supplies, and
yeah, exactly. You can turn 3 of the tubes off and then kick your 4th tube down to 10-15% or whatever to do some engraving. But then when you want to blast through some thick material, you fire all 4 of the tubes up.
Yeah, it just works on a combiner system.
Okay, and that's nice. And then if you had a individual tube failure, it doesn't shut you down completely. It might slow down your max output or your cut speed, but you can still work while you replace the tube.
Yep. The one downfall is if one tube goes out, when you replace it, you're replacing all 4 because it's all one unit. So that is one downfall to it.
It's not 4 individual. Okay.
No, it's not 4 individual tubes. It's 4 tubes packed in one tube housing. So
Are they glass tubes or are they solid state?
No, they're glass. They're CO2.
Okay. Well, I know there's RF CO2 and
it'd cost $100,000 to build an RF quad tube source.
Well, if you had an RF, you wouldn't need a quad tube because the RF is more than powerful. You can get a 200 watt RF that's powerful enough, or as powerful as 4 of the 100 and whatever he's got, or it's got.
Yeah, but when the cost of the quad tube is only about, I think it was like $580 or $680 for the tube.
It's a consumable at that point.
Yeah.
Hold on now.
Say what?
How is a quad tube cheaper than a single tube?
Well, so they're made by the same company. They're about. See, I'm trying to think. A standard tube you can get off of CloudRay, I think, for like $380 or something like that.
Are they a quad tube or a quad beam?
No, it's a quad tube. So it within the actual tube has all the focusing mechanisms to combine all 4 tubes into one solid laser beam coming out.
That's the only way they could probably maintain the accuracy is to have all that in one piece. But so does it share the same gas? I think is what they're asking. Is it
That's
modular?
Is it 4 beams or is it 4 individual tubes? Because
So
if it's 4 individual tubes, that'd be one heck of a unit, one.
Yeah.
And two, I can't see it being $600 for 4
Yeah, I don't know how it'd be
130 watt
cheaper.
tubes.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Well,
If I
if
pull
you
it up here.
occupy the same space and you use the same gases, you just have 4 electrodes and 4
Yeah.
cathodes.
Well, that's
I
what
mean,
I'm getting
There's
at.
not a whole
if it's,
lot more to that, you know.
but if it's, that's what I'm saying. Is it 4 beams? Is it 4 tubes? Because if it's 4 beams, it would share the
answer
same
is
gas.
yes.
It's,
The
That doesn't
answer
help.
is yes to both questions.
I was gonna say they share the same gas path, but the same
Well,
capsule.
they'll
Basically,
each have to have separate pumping chambers and all that stuff and
Well,
output
yeah.
couplers and all that. But yeah, I think they could share the same space.
Yeah.
I don't know why they couldn't.
Yeah, so
But I mean, if you,
they're kind of weird. So the water chamber is one chamber for all 4 tubes. What they did is
Yeah.
they took the center gas section, and it's 4 individual gas sections surrounded by one larger
Water
tube. So the
jacket.
tubes are actually only about this big around. They really aren't that much bigger than a standard tube.
Well, so
Maybe
the bit-
twice as much or so. But it's got
So they're-
4 gas chambers, but one water chamber that circulates through all
yeah,
4.
that makes sense. Because the way it sounds like when you were saying that is there are 4 individual tubes. I mean, these tubes are 3.5, 4 inches round. I mean, you'd have a 16-inch round tube
Yeah,
going out
yeah.
the back if they didn't share
Yeah,
the same tube.
Yeah, they're about half again as big around as a normal one, maybe twice the size around.
Yeah, it's basically
they
that
really
center. It's basically that center tube that runs down the middle of your tube because the outside of it's just a gas chamber.
The housing.
Yeah, yeah. So
The
it's all
housing
one.
and the-
Yeah, so it's one gas chamber between all of them,
Yeah.
and then you have 4 individual tubes inside that
Yep.
house that beam, and then the water
Okay.
circulates. around all 4.
That makes sense. That makes sense then. But still, I don't see how that's $600 though for what a 500 and something watt
Keep
tube.
in mind that was directly from the manufacturer over in China. So
Yeah,
I don't know.
that was cost, not price, right? So there's going to be markup and
That's just raw cost. So
Say,
by the time it's over here, I'm sure it's going to be, $1,000,
I know
$1,500 like that.
a 150 watt tube. I mean, you can get them on the black market for like $500-$600. But I mean, retail you're looking $1,500 to $3,500 depending on what brand you get.
Cool.
But hey, I gotta go, guys.
All right,
But,
man.
Good talking to you.
All right, take care. We
All
holla.
right. Take it easy.
Bye-bye.
I got a question for Jeremy. You're getting a 51, is that correct?
that's correct. A 51-130.
What led you to that? I'm looking for size to be able to put larger stuff in is the reason I don't know about my wattage that I need.
Yeah, so I looked at the max wattage just to be able to the cutting and some of the faster speed on your engraving rastering. But the key for me was to be able to stick a full size sheet good, whether it's a piece of MDF or cardboard plywood through it, right? And I looked at the 51 as well as the 63, right? Ideally, I would have liked the 63 to have been a little bit deeper and I could fit it in through the side. Right, but you can't get the 48 inch. I think is it 44 on the depth. So you can't quite get it through the side. So you still stick it in the front. So for me, that space, unless I pre-cut the material, right, I would just have lost space on the 63. Right, there'd be a little bit of lost space on the 51 because I'm going to stick a 48 inch wide through the front. Is what drove me to that, and then the 130 watt, I probably could have got away with 100, but everything I see in here, buy the most power you can get. So
I was just trying to get what I really think I want to use later on. This upgrading, I'd rather take a step now instead of.
So same as what I did.
Well, I'm curious, what are you guys making with the full size sheets, or what are you planning on making?
So I've got I've got a CNC machine now where I cut some signs, anything from signs, a lot of monograms and things, people hang on their doors, a 18 to 36 inch, round, right? But more importantly is I don't specifically plan on cutting real big individual items as much as laying out multiples on the same sheet, right? So
Okay.
time in between sending the job to the laser. If the bigger one I can cut 4 instead of 2, right? Then it saves me that much time in between.
A lot of what I'm wanting to do is to do a lot of monogramming and stuff on, and some of the boards that we're using are larger than the 24, and so it just lends itself to go ahead and step up. I've only talked with one individual that actually owned, and that's Michael, that Brian's getting me lined up to go see, and he sings praises about it, and I'm looking forward to going down there next week and actually see the thing in place. I'm like you, I have a CNC machine that does the heavy cutting and stuff like this that I'm looking to. And I have a full bay capacity on it.
Yeah, I'm ready to get rid of that portion on mine just because the setup time, the clamping, and then you want to go change a tool, or it's a lot, right? I use a CNC machine for V carvings, about all I use it for anymore, and I'm actually considering getting rid of it and scaling it down just because my V carving stuff's normally on smaller things like cutting boards and stuff like that. I don't need the dimensions I've got on the CNC machine now, so scale that down and go buy maybe a better purpose-built CNC that's smaller bed area, but something with lead screws, linear rails, or something like that, rather than the belt drive pulley one that I've got now.
So Danny, you mentioned you're going to see a Thunder laser. Is it in your local market? And is that
it's 160 miles away.
Okay.
Mine is 460 miles away, so this sounds real good.
Yeah, exactly.
Local market's all relative, right?
Exactly. Yeah, I'm in Chicago, so I got to think there's people here in Chicago that have Thunders.
But no, and the reception that I had from him was tremendous. I don't know if he's you said he's a demo person. Is that he does that generally, Brian?
Yeah, we have some demo partners. Travis is one, Jason's one, Robert's one. I think he jumped off here. But we've got quite a few scattered along the country with the COVID thing going on, and we've really scaled it back,
Sure.
with everything going on, and let the individuals make their own decisions if they want to do a demo. We actually had a guy that was probably about 20 minutes away from you, but he has some high-risk family members, so he's taking some extra protocols. So he's not doing demos right now. So
even somebody just to call and talk to them was tremendous.
Yeah,
that helps out a lot.
Yeah,
And
Travis really makes a big difference. So
I want to try to pull the trigger. I understand we're not going to be able to pick it up next week after we ordered. Is that right, Jeremy?
If you are, I'm gonna be upset. I'll be happy for you, but I'm gonna be upset that I gotta wait till March.
Hey, Brian, I just sent you a message with a picture of one of the tubes. This one's a dual tube. You just want to throw it up just so Jason can kind of see what I'm trying to explain. So this one's a tube. Just imagine it with 4 of them instead of 2.
Where'd you put it? Facebook?
Facebook, yeah.
I find myself asking that question. It's like someone says, I sent you this. I'm like, email, text message, Facebook Messenger. It's like too many means to communicate these days.
Yeah, I try to push everybody toward the support portal because 90% of our information is digital.
Okay,
so
there you go.
I had an actual link to it somewhere. I just can't see over around these things.
I know I sent you a link to a quad tube. I just don't remember what the link was.
Okay,
so,
I
but
guess
that
it is.
That's a dual there. So that's kind of how they work.
Okay.
Yeah, so they got their individual gas pass, but they're enclosed in the same cylinder.
And you said you're working on having that pushed out by Q1 of next year, Travis? Is that what I heard?
No, Brian told me that's going to be available here in about a week.
Yeah, for Christmas, for immediate delivery, right? Drive to Tennessee and pick it up.
So I will say for everyone who's either waiting for their Thunder or is new to Thunder, who's on here, play around with live hinges because they are a blast. So this is just a new pattern that we just came out with, and it's cool because you can take just normal wood and flex it, bend it however you want, and it won't break.
So that being said, I started looking into something. What I ended up finding on Facebook was a group called Created in Lightburn, where people are creating lots of stuff in Lightburn. What I found that still seems to be missing, that was actually very useful in the 3D printing world. I don't know if anyone plays around with 3D printers, but where a lot of people struggle in that market is the modeling, the creating the files that work, that get the results they want. Right, so there's a lot of websites. You can go to Thingiverse, for example, and download models that give you settings that you plug and play and they print. There's a lot of room in this market as well for files that work, right? So Travis, who's got something phenomenal that works there, right? You need to start selling the files. Right, here's a Lightburn file at this setting, or if you don't want to sell them, you want to offer them to a community or something like that.
So that is coming very soon. If you follow Mad Moose Labs on Facebook, so we've got an ebook that's out right now. We're working on a full training system on there, where there's different levels. If you have the highest level, all these kind of files are included on that membership. So yeah, all the different things that we come up with, like Christmas ornaments or live hinges, that kind of stuff. This one was actually created because we had a need with one of our clients. We're getting ready to do a large round sign for them that's wrapped with live hinge, but we wanted the light, because it's color changing light, we wanted to be able to spill out from the sign. Standard normal live hinges that you'll see are just really basic like this, and they don't really look all that nice, compared to something like this where it's nice and open, still super solid, but you can let the light through.
Well, see, I just had a idea. So where I've made furniture or different things in the past with plywood, where you do what's called kerf bending. I don't know who here is familiar with it, but you end up taking and cutting through all but like your last veneer and the plywood, and you can determine the spacing that you need to cut, and you just cut it to where you can bend it and the veneer stays rounded, right? So you can actually bend your plywood around curves and stuff like that, which it's a lot more work than if you can just plug it in the laser, and then that gives a different effect. Your hinge can actually be see-through, and you can bend things like that as well, right? May have some different implications in terms of the structural side, but the visual side is really nice.
You can do the same thing with the laser too, like I just did. Yep. I'm into I do RC trucks and stuff like that, and I make ramps, and you can actually kerf the back of the wood with the laser too.
Yeah, to get your ramp
to be able to get your curvature of the ramp, which is really good. But like what he did there, that's a pretty neat take on the hinges. But the biggest thing with lasers is the 3D printing. An STL is an STL. So you could take that STL if it's set up right and put it into any 3D printer, and it's going to print. Well, with a laser, there's so many variables: power, speeds, types of material. I mean, the 3D printing. I know what you're gonna say.
yeah, I was gonna say it's not just that simple. There are the variables, but yeah.
There's a lot of. I mean, you'll see when you get your rotary how much 3D printing is in that. But what I mean to say is you have a file as an STL. It has all your basic parameters to make something. Whereas with the laser, there's so many different variables. I mean, I know there's speed and power or temperature and stuff like that in 3D printing, but in laser, it's similar. But then you have your types of wood, your wood densities, your powers of the lasers. That's like one of my biggest things is when someone gets on and says, "Hey, what power and speed do I need to do this job on my laser?" It's like, okay, you have a 20, a 30, a 60, a 80, 100 watt laser. I mean, but you get these people that will spout off this information based on what they use, and then these people try to use
Not
that
necessarily
information,
relevant,
and they're
yeah.
like, man, I burnt through my material, or it didn't barely leave a mark, or whatever, and so there's so many different variables.
Yeah,
And what
and that's
Travis,
something that I noticed, right, is, like in power, for example, a percentage of your power rather than you need 72 watts to cut through this, right? It's a percentage of your machine setup, right?
mm-hmm.
So that's
Yeah.
one, you're not giving it in units, right? Which,
Well, I mean,
whereas speed, depending on which program you use, it could be millimeter, inches per second, or a percentage of the maximum speed of the machine,
well, I mean,
right?
if you have a 100 watt laser tube, 10% is 10 watts.
Yep.
So I mean, in that regard, if you can break down the percentage of your tube, then yeah, you can run it in watts. But percentage is what basically everybody does.
The problem
Yeah,
is with that is the percentage is actually an arbitrary metric
It
because
is.
Yeah.
it's actually 100% is 100% of the maximum capable output of the power supply.
Yeah.
So
And the tubes are all slightly different, right?
and the tube has a power curve that's different. Each power supply may be just a little off, even if, of course, we calibrate ours with the software config, so we can at least have intelligent discussions about speed and power across the different,
Yeah.
powers and that kind of thing. So that definitely helps us having that standardization. But yeah, it's
yeah,
not
there's-
linear by any means, so.
I mean, it's like I was saying, comparing it to 3D stuff for Jeremy there, like almost every 3D printer has the same power supply, a mean well or something like that. They're all the same.
Yeah. If you get the good
same-
one, right? You don't get the cheap one, but yeah.
Yeah, the same circuit boards and all that stuff. I mean, that stuff like what Travis has got there is definitely unique. But the design is one thing. Like he can put up. I have a 130 watt tube. I go 10 millimeters a second at 60% power, and this is what I get. You can use that as baseline numbers.
Yeah, and then you have to tweak it for your specific.
Then you have to tweak it. But as far as the files and stuff, some people in the laser community are very, very tight with their files on some things, especially when it comes to weapons and things like that, where there's big money and being able to do that kind of stuff. So trying to get stuff like that from people, good luck with that. But
there may be a file repository somewhere down the road, since I'm starting to dabble back in the back end admin of the web stuff some more. I just, we wanted the main site just to give information about the machines and that only. So that part site and some other things that I've got going on allow me a lot of creativity and ability to put some cool things together. So that might be something.
Well, Thingiverse actually has vector files in that website as well. I mean, they're not as many as you'd probably like, but there's some in there. But my theory is, like with Photograve and all that stuff. I mean, I have it, but I don't use it, kind of thing. But it's the whole teach a man to fish kind of thing.
Yep.
Instead of just giving them a fish. There's a lot of people that they'll get repetitive about that, and that's all they'll do is they'll come back to you and come back to you and come back to you.
Yeah, they just want another fish every day. Yeah.
Yeah. So, and
and besides what Travis is doing, we've got some other stuff coming. I don't even know if I'm supposed to say anything about it yet, but I'm going to.
There you go.
It's a training course that we're having put together professionally about setting up the laser, using it, that first start stuff, first class stuff. So that's coming too. So we got a lot of stuff coming. We're hitting the ground running in 2021 with even more cool stuff. So you'll have to stick around and watch.
I will say I've had a lot of people get a hold of me about. I've had a lot of people get a hold of me about rotaries and stuff, and mention about Thunder. And some of them have actually popped on here on the meetings once in a while about what you guys are doing, which is awesome with this conference, these conference calls, and the manuals and the tech stuff that you got there, where you do the search for setup or whatever. which nobody else is doing. And if they are, they're dragging their feet with it. So
Yeah. Well, I've only been doing it. That system's only been up for what, about 6 months, 6 or 8
Yeah.
months, and I'm at
Yep.
700 ticket count already. So
yeah, I mean it's definitely a good thing. And like who on here was was that John Z that was looking but
Yes.
hasn't got one yet? Okay.
Danny's looking
I mean,
also. He's got a demo going too. Yeah.
And Danny. So I mean, people like that coming in and seeing this on a regular basis, and looking back on YouTube or whatever, you can tell it's not just a fly by night operation either. So
Well, the whole fabric of the community is better. You go to these Chinese generic laser cutter groups, and they're all dumpster fires because nobody knows what equipment they have. They all have different lenses, different things, like you were talking about before. And the standardization, but that's part of it. But the whole community, the whole Thunder community, is just superb. And that's a huge part of it, for sure.
Well,
I took a quick look at the Facebook group, and it seemed very active, and a lot of nice working ideas and information sharing going on.
Yeah, a lot of people. Go ahead, Jeremy.
I was going to say the one thing that drove me to Thunder, right? I looked at a lot. I considered buying an Epilogue, right? I've looked at a lot of different ones, right? And the thing that drove me to it is this community, the supportability. I'm fairly tech savvy, right? I've got 3D printers in the background. I got some custom drones I've made over here. I run, a technical group for GE. We deal with a lot of technology, but at the same time, right? It's the supportability. It's the network, right? It's when I have a problem and I post something on Facebook and 5 different people answer within 5 minutes, giving me exactly what I was looking for, right? That's invaluable, right? No doubt, if I would have spent $70,000 on a laser, maybe I would have got a better technology, or maybe I would have got a better product, because you do get what you pay for. But I don't know that I would have got the better experience and the support, right? I've not seen that, and that's one. Maybe in the future I look at buying something else for different reasons, right? One thing I am considering is the Odin, and looking at it just from a portable. If I wanted to throw it into a job trailer and move it around and go do demos or arts and crafts festivals where I can custom etch things that people are buying from the booth over there. I didn't make it, but they want it customized. That might be better not hauling around a laser with a glass tube that's going to bounce around on the road. So that type idea. And that's one of the reasons I was looking at the Epilogues and some of the others. But Thunder has the Odin, and might stick with that as well. One question I did have, Brian, something that you mentioned on the website, and I know we've got several people here that have websites. So, Brian, are you doing the website, the back end, the web development and stuff like that?
Not for the main site. I've started the parts one, and I've started some POS and e-commerce stuff there to make it easier to get parts or lenses, things like that we're implementing.
So I'm just going through the setting up a business with my wife, right? Got the LLC set up, just got the website hosting and stuff done, right? And that's one I was just looking, as we started looking into WordPress with Elementor and setting up a site, just kind of some of the stuff we've looked at online. But I see Jason shaking his head, so I'm at least going down the right path, or a decent path. That's one I was looking at doing, right? I don't know much about it, but I figured I'd at least try and look into it, right? And wasn't sure if people here had any experience with it.
I've been exclusively WordPress for ever since they started. Before that, I just did HTML and a little bit of PHP.
I've done some HTML 20 years ago, and I'll stay away from that.
Everything that I run is WordPress and WooCommerce. And as long as you keep it clean and don't get it bloated with all those plugins, there's a lot of stuff you can do to clean that up and make it still run good. It's a very solid platform, and it's infinitely adjustable. I mean, it's awesome.
Yeah, I run two sites of my own off of it, and I started from not knowing anything. Like I did the HTML thing back in the day, But as far as WordPress and all that stuff, I never even touched. But I had someone, kind of get me going in the right direction, and then I've taken it off from there. So my Rotary website, my main website, they're all run by me, and on the back end, front end, everything. So
Yeah. And I like WordPress so much that all of the ones that I do, I got them on my own thing. So I even have my own reseller hosting just because I got tired of messing with my other people. So I can just make things. But yeah, WordPress is very solid, and I'll be glad to point you some, send you some pointers or things like that if you have any questions. So
that's one. I'm still
getting
the hardest part I have is figuring out exactly what and how I want it to look, right?
So what I can do, I run about probably 40, 45 different websites. I do have some of them on WordPress and some on various other platforms. As you get busy, your WordPress site, and you're going to have to expand your server. I mean, I've got a full dedicated server down in Cave Creek, Arizona. And that's, a lot of people do these shared hosting ones where like, hey, my site's taking 10 or 15 seconds to load, and it's just simply because of your hosting. Like GoDaddy hosting is probably the worst out there, honestly.
You know much about HostGator?
HostGator is worse than GoDaddy.
All right, well, there you go.
If you're looking for something that's going to be quick and cost effective to get started, look at 8.2 hosting. They are amazing to work with. You can get a dedicated IP, which is the other big thing that you want to make sure you have, because without a dedicated IP, when you're sending emails through that server, if you're on a shared IP, anyone who's sending spam and it gets flagged as spam, well, now you're flagged as spam. So you don't want to have that dedicated IP for that. But as you get busier, like our primary site is actually hosted through Deco Network. It's expensive, but it does the job, and it lets me bring all my different websites into one single back end to control all my orders going in and all my orders that I need to provide to suppliers. So, if you're only going to be doing like laser engraving, 3D printing, that kind of stuff, you might look at something like Shopworks or something like that, or Shopbox. Both of those are really good sites for this kind of stuff. Deco is more for the apparel industry, but I kind of tweaked it a bunch to make it work for lasers. But I mean, they're definitely powerful. I mean, my Mad Moose Labs website is run off of WordPress. It's got full-on training modules. I'm working on programming testing so you can actually become a certified laser operator. I mean, there's all this different stuff that you can do with WordPress. It's insanely powerful, but just remember, each time you install a new plugin, that's more resources on your server, and you've got to beef your server up because of it. So
and I've got 15 years of screwing up on WordPress to tell you not what to do, what not to do. So
and that's one I
really quick. This one is one I was playing with. I didn't know if it was going to work, but so this is a 3mm birch that I can fold on top of itself. If I can hold it.
Did it?
And he broke it. Yeah.
It just sprung out of me. So I can fold it in a complete S.
That's crazy. I think Chris had a question. He messaged me, and I think he was going to jump in. If you're able, Chris, you still there? If not, you can hit me on. There you go.
Yeah, I'm still here. I just got a couple questions.
Sure.
So I've been kicking around this laser idea because I need to do plates for electrical equipment. My supervisor says, "Oh, I want you to do a die cut or a die cutter or a spindle type thing," and I'm like, "No way, I don't want to do that."
Gotcha. If you're talking about like the two color boards, where it's
talking phenolic,
and that kind of thing, or even stainless, and then you could use a marking compound, or if it's anodized or something, you have those choices. But is it going to be specific to that and that only, and you'll never do anything else with it, or do you want to have the ability to be able to do other things and do some rapid prototyping and stuff like that?
No, I'm electrical contractor, installer. I'm not going to prototype anything.
Okay, I'd get the Mini 60. It was made for rubber stamps. That's why it doesn't have a movable bed. And if that's all you're going to do all the time, slap them in there and run with it.
Okay, so So the Mini 60, does that have a honeycomb thing bed or okay? And if I place a sheet of material in there, how does it not move around? Do you have little clips, or I know Jason, you had like little clips that you put in through the honeycomb and stuff like that, or well, how does it not move, or do you just tape the corners at one of the places and just let it go?
Yeah, a lot of stuff doesn't move. A lot of the clamping you see is because the wood is cupped or warped or so, has some warpage or something like that you're trying to overcome. But typically that kind of stuff will just lay right there. Especially, are they gonna be pre-cut, or are you gonna actually engrave them and cut them out yourself?
Engrave them, and then I saw on another video that someone didn't cut them all the way through. They set it to where it cut to where they could just snap.
Yeah. Okay.
Yep.
I gotcha.
So Chris, I've been where you are, right? I actually own the spindle to cut those out, right? To put on switchboards, lighting panels, and stuff. The equipment that we've supplied when we had either name changes or needed to put different safety labels or instructions on pieces of equipment. And yeah, from a laser point of view, right, is you don't have anything that physically touches it like you do with a spindle or a CNC. Right? The reason with the spindle CNC you got to clamp it down is you've got something that's physically touching it, cutting it, and moving back and forth that's going to try to move it, where a laser is etching and cutting it, right? You don't actually put any motion on it, right? You're not pushing it other than straight down.
Correct. So I figured that I've seen plenty of videos and everybody just places on there. I've seen a couple other people that just they make that little box and they just place it in there, and they see that it wasn't cut through all the way, and they run it again in that certain corner and recut it and stuff like that. So I figured that was what it was, but I just want to make sure. And then what type of an environment can this machine be in? So I'm in an office, but they plan on having this at a fab shop where there's pallets of light fixtures coming in and stuff like that, and so it kind of can get dust and dirty throughout there. But I'm just curious on what type of environment this thing can be placed in.
Well, one question I would ask you about that, Chris, is it ever, so I don't know your specific electrical contracting business, but if it's going to be from an office potentially moved into the factory, or if it's ever going to go to the job site, if you ever got plans to move it, right, that's one thing to consider, right? If it needs to be mobile, loaded into a truck or a trailer and moved.
No.
Okay.
Yeah. So the only thing that I would recommend is, if you're going to be running it in a dusty, dirty environment like a actual shop, is the fronts of these machines have some louvers on them where it sucks in the air that's going to be exhausted out. I'd recommend getting some filter floss and putting it on there just to help filter some of the particulates out. It'll help keep your laser lenses cleaner a little bit longer, because that's really the biggest part about getting these things dusty and dirty is the mirrors and the lenses. So if you can find a way to mitigate keeping those clean, like filter floss is extremely cheap. You can just get it, and I get mine because I have saltwater fish tanks, so I get mine just from my saltwater suppliers, and it's like $3 a sheet. So, and if you want, you change it monthly or whatever it needs. Also, Brian, if you want to pull up jpplus.com and pull up their ROA mark, that's the material that he's going to want to be using on that laser.
Yeah, I found a supplier here locally in the Twin Cities that can do that. So I found that material.
Yeah, I've played around with a lot of them, and because I do a full-on promotional product thing, but we do a lot of electrical plates for people. And I've played with cheaper versions, and I always go back to ROA mark just because it's the cleanest engraving. I never have issues with it. I've ran some other ones. Yeah, maybe not the clear.
Yeah, I know.
Well, they got
I would get that one.
JDS has Romark too.
Yeah, well, the reason, JDS has it, and it's actually cheaper through JDS. The only reason I like this is they have better pictures on their website than JDS.
They're the same pic. They're like literally the same pictures.
Are they? Well, they've got a better description of it, but yeah, you can get it from JDS as well, or if you've got a local supply shop. My local supply shop only carries the Romark that is, I don't even think it's actually Romark, but it's the same company, but it's not the laser one for routers. It's Gemini.
So if I look at that, their bulk stuff, does the working, so if I bought one of their plates, does that fit on the Mini without doing like, I got to cut off an inch every time I have to do a set of A plates?
So the ones from JDS Industries and Johnson's Plastics, those you can get the 12x24s, which I believe fit on the machine, don't they, Brian?
Yeah, that's close. It's 600
on
by
the 24.
Yeah.
Yeah,
No,
they'll
It's
fit
the
on
same as
just
the Mini
fine.
60.
Yeah.
Yeah, Mini 60 is the same.
Those ones,
It'll fit on there.
Those ones will fit, but if you start doing a bunch of this, I would actually, we order a lot of our material straight from Gemini. And so you might actually get a hold of Gemini and set up an account with them, and they'll cut it to whatever size. So we get ours cut down to 24x24 sheets from them just for the shipping aspect. Because I'm up in Alaska, trying to ship anything over 2 foot by 2 foot in width is just expensive and a royal pain.
Unless it's Russian birch.
Unless it's Russian.
Well, he's close to Russia up there, see?
I can see it from my house.
He's closer to Russia than he is to the rest of the continental U.S., right?
Mm-hmm.
All
Cool.
right.
And then anybody can chime in on this. What is, if I go with a Mini or if I step up and go with the 24? Do you see any difference between the two besides the power and the bigger?
It doesn't. I'll tell you the things that the Mini 60 does not have that the Nova 24 does, and that's a red dot pointer, an active chiller, dual air assist, and autofocus, and a movable Z table, and the option to use a rotary. All of that stuff is missing for $2,400.
Yep.
Okay, well then $2,400. Because I want the red dot laser so I can see where I am at. And then I want the Z table just in case I do put thicker stuff on there. Right. I want the autofocus because if I'm out of focus, I'm SOL and I could do a whole plate and then I got to redo it because I was out of focus and you can't see what the heck you were doing, right?
Yeah, well, if you're going to use the same material, you could probably manually focus one time and never touch it again. That's where that Mini 60 would actually be a plus. It would be less complicated. You could build a jig where your material goes into the same place every time and have just about anybody that can hit an enter button replicate that, hopefully.
And then you said the Mini 60 doesn't need a chiller?
The Mini 60 has a passive chiller. It's just a radiator. So whatever the ambient temperature of the room is, it can't get any lower than that. So if that's going to be in an environment where it's going to be above 70 degrees ever, or even above probably 60 for it to be truly effective, you may want to consider an active chiller. The Mini 60 is a great machine. The build quality is the same. You know, it's the same quality. It's just either specific purpose stuff like for what you're doing or to, you know, help with the Glowforge group and all that, have an industrial solution for those limitations. But if it were me, I would buy the Nova 24. I don't think I would be happy with the Mini 60 personally.
So for the chiller, just trying to figure this out. So if it's in a warehouse, so it's in one of those strip warehouses, so they got the doors open, it's 100 degrees, I have it in there, and they're gonna have the doors open with a kind of like a breeze running through it.
Yeah, if the ambient temperature is above 70 degrees, you're not going to be able to keep that thing cool. Not in that kind of environment.
Yep,
unless that active chiller.
Yeah.
So,
okay.
And also, one of the other things, if you go up to the Nova 24 that's got the movable table, you know, not only does it come with the active chiller, so if you're getting 100-degree air on there, it's actually able to cool it down correctly. But what we've done on some of our or to help out some of our contractors and stuff is, I don't know if you do this kind of electrical or not, but the inside schedule sheets of electrical panels, instead of those sheets, we actually, when we're doing medical facilities that are going to be there for a long time, they'll actually bring the faceplate into me, and I'll actually laser engrave the actual electrical schedule into the inside of the faceplate, so that way you don't have to worry about if if it gets wet over time or torn off or smudged or whatever, it's permanently on that panel at that point. And they absolutely love that. Fire marshals up here love it. Yeah, it's just been a huge win-win all the way around.
So you bring in the front electrical, like, cover
The
door.
dead front door, yeah.
Yeah, just that, I forgot what it's called. It's the cover plate for it, though. They'll bring that cover plate in, and then I'll line it up with my camera alignment system and just engrave out the whole electrical schedule straight on the inside cover of it.
And then do you spray that then with that type of compound or that electrical or whatever, that spray?
Nope, those are just most of them are either powder coated or they're like a baked on enamel. The laser will blast right through that stuff, and then it just exposes. Typically they're made out of like aluminum or something like that, so they don't ever rust. Some of the old ones are made out of steel, and you might have some issues. You might just have to throw a quick clear coat over it or something if it is steel. But other than that, yeah, they turn bright silver, great contrast off of that standard kind of medium charcoal gray color that they're, I guess, slate gray color that they are. But yeah, it's worked really well. We've done all the way up to the big ones that are 24 inches long for the like sprinkler riser rooms and all that kind of stuff. We do all sorts of fun stuff like that. So, but that stuff, if you're going to want to go and start adjusting your thickness by throwing, faceplate covers and that stuff in there, you definitely want to go with the 24 to get that adjustable table.
Got it.
Yep. Well, I'm going to have to kick off of here. I got a few things I need to catch up on. And
Thanks everybody for their input on that. I greatly
Absolutely.
appreciate that. It helps me sell it to my managers.
Awesome. Great.
Hey, next week, if you haven't decided yet, have them hop on with you. And if they have other questions, we'll help them out too and try to get you on the right machine.
Yeah. I need to figure out how to get my managers to buy me one.
Unfortunately, I am my own manager, so
Yeah. Well,